Mark, that was very kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Mark, and I know Sandra had to leave, but this committee, OCREC, was very gracious to give me some of their time last week of session, and Nate, I think you were on the call that night, and a few others, and so I was humbled by their leadership in taking my call and talking through actually the Safe School Gun Control Bill. So thank you so much for, please, my door is always open to you all, so please continue to reach out. I'm honored by the support from that. And Senator Gaynor, wow, and Jan, what a great honor to be with you guys. Y'all have got a great champion with Senator Gaynor. I spent a lot of time in his office with Andrea and Kim and and the donuts and all this. If you ever come to Tallahassee and you want incredible hospitality, go to Senator Gaynor's office. Because they drip with it over there, and so that's a good. I guess we get to share the podium tonight, so I hope I don't steal any of your thunder. And then my aide, for those that have been around this district for a long time, Samantha Sullivan's in the back. She's worked for this Florida House for 15 years now. Started with Jerry Melvin, and then of course Ray Sansom, Matt Gates, and then she drew the short straw and stuck around helping me. But anything legislatively that you probably need done or want done, she's had her fingers on it in some capacity. So yeah, absolutely. And Mark, thanks again for inviting me to come back. Let me just start with saying I looked around the room, several of y'all were gracious enough to either see me in Tallahassee or give me some of your time this session in a variety of capacities. And I appreciate that. I mean, y'all, I don't ever want to act like I'm smarter than you in some of these categories. And so for y'all to be experts in your field, to allow me to call you and talk to you, meant a lot to me. Because sometimes you just need someone to sound stuff by. And so I appreciate that. Actually, Commissioner Goodwin was the last one to text me today, just a word of encouragement. And so it's little things like that mean a lot. And just your willingness to even reply or let me call you, it means a lot to me. But let me just hit a few of the highlights for 2018 for me. And then I thought I'll leave it up to Senator Gaynor. There's some things maybe that we did collectively between the House and the Senate, and then from a budget perspective, I can hit a few of those as well. And then Mark, I don't know what your thoughts were. Maybe let him go, then we can take questions together at the end. Would that be good? Yep. Okay, cool. And that way y'all can ask questions at the end as well. We can both be up here for that. For me, in the House, I had 5 committees I served on this year. They were the same 5 I had last year, bar the one of the Triumph Gulf Coast, because we were successful. And for those, most of y'all probably realize we have the $300 million already in the region, and they're looking at projects now to fund. Senator Gaynor and Senator Brox on the Senate side worked out something for the next bucket of funds to $75 million a year roughly. Will start next year, and it'll be like a 19-year, 20-year annuity. And thanks to their leadership, we actually got that into our bill. So that's a great victory from last year. But that's the only committee I'm not on this year. I'm on the Education Committee. Several of y'all that are running for education are currently in education. Actually, Dr. Kelly was 2 of my boys' principals. So I hopefully you've recovered my kids were a blessing and loved you, Dr. Kelly. So, but I'm on the Education Committee, and so we looked at everything from higher ed to K through 12. I'm also, this year I got the honor to serve as Vice Chair of the Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee, which is the funding element behind colleges, universities, tech schools, trade schools, etc. And that was a great honor for me because I put a lot of value, especially here at home with Northwest Florida State College, for example. And I'll hit on that here in just a few minutes. Also, I had the great pleasure, as Mark even alluded to, faith does play a big part in my life and my family. I was asked last year as a freshman House member to be the chair of the Legislative Prayer Caucus. And so this is the second year I got to serve on that, and we would have meetings every week. I'd put together a little meeting for all the people to come, and so that was a great pleasure for me to serve in that capacity. Got to pray for a lot of people. They allowed me this year to open the joint session in prayer, which is a great honor for me. And so just for whatever it's worth, it was an honor. I mentioned education, higher education appropriations. I'm also on post-secondary, which is the policy side of the higher education. I'm on K through 12 innovation, which is on that K through 12 obviously, but anything that's kind of new or innovative from that regard comes to that committee. Then local, federal, and veteran affairs, which for us that's an obvious choice here with the military base and the military being so prominent. I felt bad because last week I was at the EDC roundtable, and if any of you were there, I went into it thinking that the military, we know it's incredibly strong here. I thought it was about 65% or 2/3, 67% of our base of Okaloosa, but I was corrected. It's actually over 70% of the economic impact in Okaloosa County is from military. So it's, for me to serve in that committee, it's a great honor. Some of the bills this year that I was able to play a part in, and actually Senator Gaynor was my Senate champion on post-secondary fee waivers, which that bill essentially allows an active duty military member to take classes on base Military get what's called a military tuition assistance to take classes. What the military excluded a few years back is anything under the fees and only let it go towards tuition. The state college system had mandatory fees in place. It wasn't much. It was like I'd say $20, $25, and it was like 4 or 5 fees. And so we worked on a bill together that would allow the colleges to waive and absorb those fees internally, just pass along the tuition part to active duty so that these colleges can get back on military bases. And the reason it's so important is here in Northwest Florida with Hurlburt and Eglin, for example, the wealth colleges from Maryland, Texas, et cetera, coming into our state, taking funds from our state to go back out of state to them for tuition, and it's active duty that are right here. And our colleges can't even play a part. And if you look at our tuition for the colleges, you're talking about maybe $86 versus maybe $225. MTA can go up to $250, but you're talking about a big swath of funds going outside the area. And so it's a great win for Northwest Florida, a great win for the colleges, and Senator Gaynor was the champion of that. In fact, the governor just signed that bill last week, and so I'm pretty happy that he's already put that into law. The other bill I worked on this year is a resolution, and if any of y'all were at the EDC roundtable, you heard the importance, if you don't know it already, of the Gulf range, the testing range out in the Gulf. It's the largest range of its kind in North America. You can take all our testing ranges in North America and put them inside that Gulf range. Anything, or once we give up any part of that range, it's gone forever. And we've got a current moratorium in place that runs through June of 2022. Congressman Gates, former Representative Gates, who had the seat, now is fighting valiantly in Washington to extend that moratorium. Secretary Zinke, as y'all probably saw, came in, met with our governor. They worked out some sort of compromise to supposedly move the east of the military mission line out of the future plans for oil drilling. However, nothing was said in that dialogue about what happens after the moratorium expires in 2022. So our goal on the House side, House Resolution 319, we had unanimous support on the floor of the House to send to Washington on our behalf, and Senator Broxton had it on the Senate side, to send to them to say, hey, Florida wants to take a stand to support the mission of the military, preserve the eastern Gulf of Mexico east of the military mission line from oil drilling. And so Congressman Gates has been fighting valiantly up there, and as I said before, in Washington. Bless you. I'm hoping that will continue and they'll extend that moratorium, but I was able to carry that on the House side. I was thankful for that. The other military bill I had a chance to run was House Bill 29. It became a larger bill and covered a variety of things. For one thing that we have is when active duty military retire or get out, a lot of them will stay, and we celebrate that. Sometimes they get an option to leave. We wanted to create a bill, and also a lot of times spouses are not focused on. And so we wanted a bill that from a working capacity would allow whether active duty, a spouse of someone that may have passed in the line of duty, a retired, spouse of retired, to join the workforce, and through a variety of agencies through the state of Florida with initial or renewal fees being waived, to give them a chance for us as the state of Florida to get them to stay here. And so we expanded that up, and we opened it to all the military from that perspective, and I was pretty happy about that. We worked with Veterans Florida to work with apprenticeships and scholarship programs, and we also opened that up to state colleges was part of that bill. We established a Medal of Honor Day. March 25th every year will be Medal of Honor Day in the state of Florida, with accompanying curriculum that will go to our schools in order for them to teach character development. What is it like to earn the Medal of Honor? And because these kids, they need to, they really need to know the importance of what these fighting men and women did. And so that part of the bill I just absolutely love. And so there's different components of the bill that came together. The governor signed that bill also as well last week, putting it into law, so I was pretty thankful about that. A Volunteer Florida bill we got and passed is just essentially, most people don't even realize it, but they have a direct service obligation with it, that DSO that basically allows them to raise money for hurricane relief, special needs, tornado issues in the state of Florida. And so I was honored to carry that bill in the House. Prime co-sponsor of, sorry, I know Mr. White's our school board chairman, but I'm very thankful for this. I know it becomes an issue, maybe hopefully not back home, but we passed In God We Trust. Every school in the state of Florida will have somewhere in their school in a conspicuous place. Thanks. Yeah. I'm excited about that too. I was the prime co-sponsor of that bill in the House, and so I love that because foundationally, as I said then, and even in committee, that our nation has lost its sight of its foundation if we don't realize God doesn't play a part in it. And so from future generations, they can't look back and know that God played a part in the DNA of our nation, that we missed the mark in future generations. And so Representative Daniels out of Jacksonville was the sponsor. She came to me and said, would I be her prime co? And I said, absolutely. And that became part of our bigger education bill that the Senate agreed to, and it's been gone. I think it's already been signed by the governor, actually. So I'm pretty excited about that. Some road namings we did. Mayor Arnold, was mayor of Valparaiso for a long time in our area. People in local government especially knew who Mayor Arnold was. We were thankful to put in a bill that carried by Representative Williamson out of Santa Rosa County, carried the bill, but we introduced that as part of his bill. Many of y'all might remember Deputy Tony Forgione and Deputy Bill Myers, who killed in the line of duty. Part of a road is named in their honor as well. And then also Sergeant First Class William Lacey, I believe is from Niceville originally, right, Sam, I think? And so we also were able to name a road, part of a road, again, in his honor. So that was a good deal. Funding, I'll tell you, Northwest Florida State College, if you don't know Dr. Stevenson at the college, you get to know him. He's a little fireball in our area, doing great things. Both their men's and women's team made the national tournament. And the reason I'm bringing that up is my son played for them last year, and they were out in Hutchinson, Kansas. And so he was very disappointed. He's not on the trip with them this year, but the boys and girls teams both went. Senator Gaynor, thankfully, he and I are like a tag team, I guess, between the House and the Senate trying to fight for Dr. Stevenson in the school. We missed out this year on a veteran center, a state-of-the-art, first-of-its-kind veteran center that we tried to get. Just wasn't there in the budget this year, but thanks to Senator Gaynor's leadership and my probably constant haggling on my side, we were able to secure them $2 million as part of it's called a PICO, which is capital outlay. The state ranks projects 1 through 30, and this was ranked number 9. And it's a remodel in the school. It actually has to do with first responders and some training and things they do internally. But I know I was really proud, I know Senator Gaynor was as well, to get them the $2 million, and they're incredibly thankful for that. So that was a big win. UWF, I don't know if y'all realize this, but for Northwest Florida, we have an incredible gym over there in their cybersecurity program. It's one of the schoolings that's taking place. I mean, it's not just banks and stuff getting hacked. It is your personal computer. It's small business. It's rampant problem. UWF, the little dime in the rough they are on the cybersecurity, they are the top 10 go-to universities in the country by the Department of Defense and National Defense. Goes to them for students that are graduating and training. It's a big deal. And so they approached me, and I was thankful to carry their appropriations request of $600,000. It allows them to expand that program, bring in more students, because they're getting 100%, pretty much 100% placement. So if you have a high schooler looking for a program, I encourage you to check that one out. Dr. El Sheikh is the dean over there, and she's doing great things. Of course, Dr. Saunders runs the university, but that's a great program, and I was glad to get that. And then Okaloosa County has not gotten a water project in a long time. And thankfully, we were able to get a $250,000 flooding stormwater issue in Overbrook subdivision. It's near the military base, and so I'm really thankful that got done and through as well. And then as vice chair of the higher education approach, the chairman approached me about carrying one of his bills for South Florida, and it got through, so I was thankful for that. A couple things got vetoed. You probably saw it in the paper. We tried to get some buses for Florosa here in Okaloosa County. Not that we're looking to, the county didn't come and say, we need buses flippantly. There's a true need we have out there on Highway 98, especially during rush hour when the base lets out and people are going home. People getting backed up on Highway 98. It can be a safety hazard as well. And so we tried to get them $1 million for 10 new buses. It made the budget, passed the Senate, passed the House. The governor vetoed it the other day. I talked to his staff today, and they're going to there's some national grants, federal grants we can look at for that. And the reason, and at first I was like, man, I can't believe it, because the military readiness component, I thought, and it passed the House and the Senate, I thought we had it. But he vetoed it because he said once you do it for one district based on that need, they have Tampa, Hillsborough County has a similar issue, or Orange County with the influx of students from Puerto Rico from the hurricane. They have issues going around, and he said, Mel, each district will have something kind of unfortunate that happens from time to time. If you do it for one, you got to start doing it for others. But there are federal grants out there that I found out today, so hopefully we can hopefully Dr. White, we can maybe pull something off for you. I don't know if we can, but we're going to try. And then Steve, forgive me, brother. This is 2 years, but I did find out good news. He's put together, and I love this because he's taken 8 museums and formed a co-op, honoring our heritage, honoring our area, and I love the spirit of what he's bringing behind that. And all they asked for is a $30,000 grant to jumpstart their marketing and get rolling. And so he's formed the coalition, but I found out from the Department of State there is a cultural grant out there, and all we got to do, we'll work with you later, is get you filed with them to get on their list. Have you done that already?
I've tried to do that, and they say it's not available for new organizations. It's only available for existing organizations.
Well, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
That's the call I got today. So I was kind of happy. I was hoping I'd see you tonight with that. Overall, just a few more things, and I want Senator Gaynor. Mark, do you have like 5 more minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm back here listening.
Okay. Higher education, because I'm on that, I thought I'd hit on that a little bit harder. And then, and I'll wait for Senator Gaynor. We can do some, maybe tag team on a few things. But the college system as a whole, I've become a ever-increasing fan of them because we're short on workforce development in a lot of areas, and the colleges are allowed to take care of things immediate for the area that they're from. And so I put great value on them. They can turn a little quicker, they can create programs, they can partner with communities, and they can be a little more pliable. They do a lot of certifications, so kids come in, they may go there, maybe not to get a degree hypothetically, just to get a certificate. And so I put great honor and value on them. And last year the state unfortunately took a $30 million whack to their overall budget. And so that's a big deal to some of these colleges that need that money. But this year we're able to work 6.5 of that back in, as well as provide $30 million in performance funding for the colleges, which means that they got to do something to earn it. It's not just a free handout. That means they got to achieve certain, it's a scalable grid. There's usually like 8 to 10 items on it, and they got to achieve certain marks in order to earn those revenues. But I was happy that we could put that back in for the college system. The Veterans Florida bill, the bill I talked about earlier, not only post-secondary helps them, that Senator Gaynor helped me with, but the Veterans Florida bill that I helped pass also helps the colleges as well. On universities, we have in the state of Florida, for those that don't know, in the preeminence category, University of Florida and Florida State, which, by the way, Florida State's still in the tournament and Florida's not. I'll just get that out right there. Oh, I'm a Florida State alumni. We beat the #1 team in our bracket. Well, hey, yeah, my son likes the Gators. I got them on both sides. But Florida and Florida State's been our preeminent universities in the state, which means they get extra funding to hire first-class faculty, to go out recruit from outside the state, bring in great research projects. And so they're kind of blowing and going from that regard, doing outstanding. This year, as part of our larger higher education bill, we brought in USF into it. They had 3 campuses that were separately accredited, which kept them almost diluted from a standpoint of earning preeminence. So this year, part of our bill pulled all those 3 into one, so they'll now vault in that new category. That will leave just UCF as one of the last ones, and I think it'll be a matter of time before they get there, but I was really happy about that. Bright Futures is something I know our area, thanks to our school system, kicks out some incredibly bright young men and women. We passed this year to have full funding for the top level for fees and tuition, as well as $300 for books. And so that was something I was pretty excited about. And then Medallion, which we haven't funded, I believe, in a few years, we're now going to fund 75% of that. So if your child is a Medallion winner, it's not 100%, but it's I think, a step in the right direction. We also had, as part of our higher education bill, an issue with free speech. This was something that came down from the James Madison Institute and a few others, where they were kind of boxing people into certain areas of campus, and some people could get to it, some people can't. Sometimes they're isolated, and so we actually are opening that up on campuses and put that in the bill, and I thought that was a pretty good addition as well. K through 12, and of course Dr. White's here as well as the others running. I think kind of somewhat last year there was some concern with the charter schools, and now my kids, and as Dr. White alluded to, we have arguably the second best public school district in the state of Florida behind St. Johns County, which is huge. I mean, absolutely. And that's a big deal. We got 2 charter, but great leadership, and we got a great school district. But my kids were homeschooled, private schooled, and public schooled, so I understand the value of sometimes kids learn in a different speed, different capacity, and so you got to be sensitive to that. And last year we passed a bill that kind of made maybe a little stronger move into the charter area. This year we kind of righted the ship a little, because one of the biggest things that bothered me in last year's bill was not there was great components with it, but there's a capital spending capacity that I didn't quite like the distribution of it. And so this bill corrects that, in that the traditional public school will keep all of the capital outlay money, plus an additional $50 million that will be distributed throughout the state. Then charters will have their own little bucket of $150 million, which sounds like a big number, but with all the charters, it's not too significant. And proportionally, the traditional public comes out further ahead, because you can ask him, there's a true need we have here in Okaloosa County with our schools. And so I'm hoping this extra funding will come in handy and help them out a little bit. It also includes a reading scholarship, which we need. Some of the kids are falling behind early. We need to help them out with reading. A principal autonomy program, which doesn't really help us much here, but some districts in South Florida, we have one principal overseeing 2 or 3 different schools. It's a cost saving, but also a leadership It brings in leadership. There were one principal's just excelling and doing great. He can now take that. A district doesn't have to worry about maybe falling short. They can actually use his or her strength and oversee 2 or 3 schools. So I thought that was a pretty good addition as well. Tax package, I'll just finish with this and close so that Senator Gaynor can come up. We always love, as good Republicans, love cutting taxes, saving money as much as we can. Tax package was not as great this year because of issues with the opioids, the Parkland situation, the hurricane that hit us last year, the Medicaid cost increases, things of that nature, but we're still able to get $170 million in savings this year. We're doing the back-to-school holiday tax-free day, the hurricane preparedness tax-free day. Required local effort is going to roll back so that unless there's new construction, we didn't have it, so we'll, from a required local effort on the education side, they'll actually roll back to what the rate was last year. That helps out a lot. Back to school, and also the TDCs this year. Hopefully, I'm sure you're probably aware of this, that the TDC bill that Representative Fine started down in South Florida got packaged in with the tax cut package bill, which allows counties around the state to 40% has to be dedicated for marketing so they don't lose that part of it, but allows districts like ours that have tourism-related infrastructure needs, whether it's roads, stormwater, et cetera, to use some of those monies in the district at the discretion of the board or the TDC board. And that's I think a big victory in some capacities. We want to make sure the marketing, we're continuing to bring them in, but if we're bringing them in and they're wear and tear, this at least allows us to have a vehicle and a mechanism to pay for that. So I thought that was a good addition to the tax package as well. Funding, as I said, some of the main increases, the budget's $88.7 billion, up $3.8 billion. The hurricane recovery and response took about $1.4 billion of that increase. The Medicaid cost increases and workload case increases were about $1.3 billion of that. The K-12 overall budget went up about $438 million. The Parkland school shooting issue was $400 million, as many of you are probably aware of. Higher education was about $167 million of that increase. That's about 3.7. Opioid was $50 million. We put another $100 million in Forever Florida Fund. And then Gardner Scholarships, which is a special needs scholarship program, went up about $235 million. Visit Florida, which is big for our area. We funded them again at $76 million. I told Ken Lawson, the executive director, if you'll do things with transparency and accountability, I'll fight for more. I was hoping they'd get more money, but they got the same they got last year, so that's good. And he's doing phenomenal, by the way. He's taking that company. Visit Florida's doing great things with them. And then Enterprise Florida gets the same $16 million. One last thing is the Florida Jobs Growth Fund, which that was the, many last year that got cut. They called it the Governor's Slush Fund. We cut that through a comprehensive effort. We came and said, let's create this Florida Jobs Growth Fund. It's $85 million. I'm proud to say that Northwest Florida has already earned 6 projects within that, 4 for infrastructure and 2 for workforce, totaling about $11 million of the $85 million. So I thought that's a good win for Northwest Florida. They could have said, hey, we're going to supplant that. You got BP money, but they didn't. I'm glad the governor took a fair look at Northwest Florida to give us with those projects. With that, I'm going to let Senator Gaynor come up and give his highlights as well, and then we'll come back at the end and take questions. Senator?
Thank you. So it's an honor to have our next speaker here with us. Senator George Gaynor is a man to respect. He started out in life with next to nothing. He says his family was poorer than a drink of water. He started a newspaper route at the age of 12, and a year later he worked as a deckhand on the fishing boats of St. Andrew. Those early formative years taught the senator a valuable lesson, that success comes from the effort that you put into it. After selling cars for a few years, in 1968, George decided to buy his own dealership. That began nearly 5 decades of ownership and operations of automotive dealerships in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. He has served as a Bay County Commissioner, was appointed to the Commission for Oil Spill Response Coordination, and was elected to the Florida Senate with no opposition in November 2016. Senator Gaynor has been successful in so many ways, but he's most proud of his family. He is married to his lovely wife, Jan, that's with us tonight, and his children and his grandchildren are his pride and his joy. So again, it's an honor to have you here with us tonight, and please join me in welcoming Senator George Gaynor.
Thank you so much for having, it is really an honor to be standing here talking to you as your senator. And last year I was asking you to hire me as your senator, and you did, and or year before last, and I certainly appreciate that. Being a senator this year was a very exciting job. I'll tell you, we started out with a hurricane, we wound up with all kind of sexual misconduct. The next thing you knew, we had the tragedy that we had down at Parkland. And all those things put together made it a very difficult situation throughout the Senate. But they said, well, we don't have any money because of Irma. No, we don't have any money because we had to drain Okaloosa and drain Lake Okeechobee. And then they had said, well, we had to pour all this money in the higher learning. But we found the money. They just had it hid. And I kind of, when we were growing up, our parents always told us, well, they didn't have no money to buy this or buy that. Well, if they wanted something, they found a way, or something we really needed, they'd find a way to get it. So that's basically what we were able to do over there. And I'll tell you, working with Mel Ponder just doubles and triples anything that you do in the Senate. I mean, I would actually threaten people with Mel. I'd say on the post-secondary fee waivers, I said, I don't think you quite understand this. Let me send Representative Ponder over there to explain it to you again. And they said, oh, no, that's not necessary. But he was a great ally, and he'd come get me if he thought he needed me, and I could call on him if I needed him. And the integrity that man has and shows, and the respect that he has in Tallahassee is just immeasurable, and I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed it the whole time that I've been over there. And he always understands, and I try to understand, because whatever decision he makes, I never question his motive. I may not like his decision, but I never question his motive. And it's nice to have that kind of understanding. I voted, I think I mentioned earlier that I voted against the big bill with education and the gun control, and I don't want everybody to think that I'm just, one of these hardheads that just don't touch our guns, don't touch our guns. I say don't touch our Second Amendment, and that's the big thing. Anything that chips away at the Second Amendment chips away at our freedom. And without the Second Amendment, we don't have anything. So until they make a 29th Amendment that says that you can go in houses and get the guns and whatever, then I'll still be doing everything I can to protect the Second Amendment. And our Second Amendment took a lot of fussing from people expressing their First Amendment, and so it got completely attacked. And one thing that I don't think Mel understands this, because we lived it, was that right after this happened, we had students and people everywhere in Tallahassee, and it was like a horrible thing happened, and it's the worst thing I've ever been through. And all the kids and so many of the teachers and the parents blamed us. Ronald Reagan said the first thing people do when they have a catastrophe is blame their leaders. And so I got to see that firsthand. The first question that people would ask me, and I'm sure they asked me the same thing, because it was hundreds of them, and they would say, how much is the NRA paying you? And my answer was always, well, the same thing that Planned Parenthood is paying you. So, because that kind of hurt that that decision could be bought by the NRA or anybody else, because our children's safety and the safety of the Second Amendment is equally as important to all of us. And if you look across this country, it's not guns that are killing us. It's like I had over 15,000 emails in favor of no gun control. 15,000 on my cell phone. I kept them all. And one of them, this man said, you wouldn't blame the spoon if your wife got fat. And you wouldn't blame the pen if it wrote a bad check. So that made a lot of sense to me. And the biggest thing was this commitment to our Constitution, and I swore, like many of you have, that I would honor the Constitution, and that I would obey it, and I will. You know, that seems to come by the wayside in so many areas. I mean, it's just they want to pick the amendments that they like and get the rest of them. You know, and it really has become something that we have to look at just about every day. I mean, so how does the Constitution look at this? And it's so important that we take that position. But the number one thing to Okaloosa in the 6 counties I represent is that we get up there and that we do everything, and Mel has helped me right along with this, is that we jack this end of the table up so that every time they put some money on it, that it comes over this way instead of sliding slap to Miami every time. So we have suffered over the years because we just hadn't had a seat at that table, and it wouldn't have helped us because all the money was going down there. But one of the biggest problems that I see, the biggest thing on my agenda is what I want. Mel told you what we got done. It wasn't easy. But we learned, he and I both learned a whole lot, and you can just aggravate them into something. But being the chairman, I had 10 chairmen. I was on 10 committees, and I was the chairman of the DOT committee, Department of Safety, and roads. And in the course of that, we've really analyzed the traffic in Okaloosa, which I don't have to tell you about that, but that is my most important. That's the most important project that I see ahead of us, and I'm glad Trey's here. We're going to be working with the TPOs, the county commissioners, the city. All of us are going to get together, and it's going to be important that we agree. I don't care, as long as the roads fix the problem. I don't care how many it needs. I don't care what we have to do, but we have got to fix the traffic problem in Okaloosa County, and we've got to do it right now. If we don't start on it right now, we're going to miss a chance that we'll never have again. Walton County and Okaloosa County and Bay County all have $15 million apiece per year for the next 18 years. And Mel and I both work very hard to bring that about. And we also have a possibility, if Trump comes through with some of this infrastructure money, that we could get that, because we're going to have the $15 million to use kind of as a partial payment or seed money. So I just feel like that this is a golden opportunity for us here, and if we don't take advantage of it, we can't look back and say, well, you know, we had it right there and we let it slip away. We can't do that. And we're reminded every day of what a problem this is. Now we have Philip Gaynor, who is related, but he understands the problem in Okaloosa County, and he is the regional secretary, and he's got the power of the pen, which makes him real close kin then. But he has looked at everything over here. He has a complete composite we've put together. I think I've sent y'all one, and about every entity here we've sent to. We've got most of the stuff in various stages of funding. We have some of it that we just need a letter from the TPOs or whatever that we need to go ahead and fund this portion of it. And this portion over here may need a little local funding, and this thing over here. But we've got about 4 of the roads that are in 80% completion as far as being planned and engineered and zoned and waiting to get started. We need about 2 or 3 more, and maybe an extra lane or 2 on some of the ones that we've got. But that is the most important thing that I'll do this year. Any votes you hear me make will be pointed toward more roads for Okaloosa County, and that is important. So if it's important to them, I'll say, well, how important is Okaloosa County getting around to you? And that's pretty much the way it works over there. And we have been able to do a lot of things throughout the 6 counties. I think that this year we kind of saved it all up, and I expect it. I got Mel praying hard for it every night, and I think we'll get there. And I think that I won't see it in my lifetime, but we will see an improvement in my lifetime, and I think we'll see an ultimate solution to the traffic problem in Okaloosa. As public officials, as voters, we've all just stuck our head in the sand as far as the traffic, and it's just terrible. We now have some good dialogue with Eglin. They have agreed that they would look into this thing. They were as concerned about getting the personnel to the base in a disaster situation as we are. So they have agreed that they will work very hard with us, and we already have a great dialogue. So we'll be going forward to with Eglin and with all the other needs here. So far, there's not east-west road on the table, but there's fixing to be. And so I'm going to bring, Philip will be over here, and we'll have some workshops. We're trying to get those put together now, and I think that we'll have some real concrete stuff about the concrete probably in the next 18 months. And I wanted to save some time because Mel covered a whole lot of territory here, and so any question that you'd have to ask either one of us would be welcome at this point, if it's okay with you.
First, give him a hand, please.
Thank you, sir.
The question was about retaliation I mean, it's always possible. You know, like as Senator Gaynor said, for me, when I continued to, actually when I spoke to the group the night before, I just said, I just want a clear head to pray about it, to make the right decision. For me, what I kept coming back to was the infringement upon the Second Amendment. What does it do? You take one little nibble, and what happens beyond that? And so I put my hand on the Bible and took an oath for that part. And so that conflicted with me so loudly. So is it possible when you go against leadership in the Senate, because the governor jumped out first and said, this is what we're doing, followed by House and Senate leadership, and that's always a possibility. I mean, voting no against them. Now, last year I didn't vote with everyone either, and so I guess my protocol stays the same. You know, can it hurt you on funding and chairmanships and all? Absolutely, it could. I hope it doesn't. I mean, so far, some of my policy side has already been signed by the governor. Now, he vetoed 2 of my funding projects, and you know, they had an excuse as to why they felt valid by that. I don't know. It could be possible. I don't know what it's like on the Senate side. So yes, it is possible.
Well, I discussed with the President of the Senate and with leadership in the Senate that this was the way that I would have to vote. But it could be a sign of every vote I'm going to make next year if they veto it. If they put it out, don't expect me to be on your side. I don't care if it's apple pie in America. I will vote against you. And then I talked to the governor and asked him, I said, I just would like to know that the man I'm going to support for U.S. Senator would not be so petty to hold me and what I think is important to this country against me. At least give us credit for voting our conscience and voting our constituents. And like at the time, I had 15,000 people that did not want any kind of gun control. So I think that's, you know, speaking their language. And Mel, he's just so much nicer than I am that he'd never do anything like that. But he could rain hell on them if he wanted to.
Good question. For me, sorry. That's okay. Thanks. So the question is basically, what do I feel about public funds being used for public education with religious matter, essentially?
Yeah. So there's the 2 issues. Of course, there's the private education funding, which is an issue.
Right.
Let me jump in here, man.
Under the religious ban.
Yeah.
The school, like in your case, the schools take a hard hit on that, and it's really, really wrong, because I've noticed from some of the, like in the sheriff in Bonifay has this faith-based program that he gets people off of drugs and gets them back in society. Because it's faith-based, we can't give him any money from the state, but it works better. He has a lower rate of recidivism, and it is such a successful operation. And I talked to him, and I don't believe anybody should take God out of anything they do, but I said, you know, for a greater good, we might want to consider this. And he said, never. He said, without the faith-based, he said it's not going to be as effective, and that made a lot of sense to me, and I shut up about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the funding piece of it is a totally different animal, but without the face, I mean, my kids went to Rocky Bayou, so I mean, I know Dr. Mosley, great school, and as you said, it's one of the top private schools in the country, and they are faith-based, which is good because it's private. Is that time out? We done? And so, but Senator Gaynor's right. I mean, if we don't have faith-based in community, the community doesn't thrive. It doesn't have the things it's supposed to. The faith-based community takes care of things that sometimes public things won't. When the public wants to remove God from it, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes we can make as a nation and as a group, because without the faith-based piece of it, our heritage will not know the cultural foundation or DNA, and we continue to work God out of almost everything in the public sector because of separation of church and state, which is not in the Constitution, by the way. It's a whole different dialogue. That's just ridiculousness. But we continue to drive God out, and then we have a trouble. We say, where's God? But we don't want to be part of it. We don't want to be part of the solution because we faced him as part of the problem, which is just such an awful response. And so I would be a believer. It's a lot of faith-based groups don't want public money because they don't want the public involved in their decision-making, because that's what happens when they take public money. There's different groups that refuse to it, some take it, and that it kind of hampers them a little bit. But I will say one thing for like Rocky Bayou and other private schools around the state that are faith-based. One of the bills we did this year was a Hope Scholarship Fund, which says basically if your kid's being bullied or threatened or whatever the case may be, that you can now get a voucher to go from a public school to a private school as long as it's proven and validated and things like that. But that way, monies could be used to send children to a private school like Rocky Bayou down the road, so it makes it available, which is why I was such a believer in that "In God We Trust" component of the bill, because it brought God back into the forefront, into the public school system based on our heritage, our DNA, and our foundation from an historical standpoint. Didn't get involved and all muddied up in some of the other things. We just kind of kept to it from a historical and a foundational standpoint. And so thankfully it went right through. So. Thank you, sir. Thanks. I guess we're done. Is that it? Okay, thanks.